Welcome to Coding with Tom. Today we will create an application that uses a UITableView to list the furniture that we are buying. And when tapping on one of the cells, we will go to the detail of that furniture with some sample context. Transform our iOS app into a universal app so that it can also be run on iPads. Let's begin by creating our application. So we will name this app Furniture, since that's what we are going to be buying in the app. I'm going to use Storyboard for this one. On my next video I will use SwiftUI to implement a list instead of a UITableView. Now keep in mind, all of these products that I'm going to be showing is test data that I'm creating locally. So what I did was I downloaded some images that we will be using. I will import them to the assets catalog. Now let's start by creating our model first. So each item in the list will be represented by a product. And I will use a struct for this. So each product will have a name, have a price. I'm going to be using double for this. We will have image name. And again, this will just be a string that we'll use to fetch the images from our assets catalog. And we'll have a description that we will show when we go to the detail of the product. Now I'll be adding a computed variable to show the formatted price, since I don't want to be showing a double. Now for this I'm going to use a number formatter. And since this is a price, I'm going to be using the currency number style. But the only thing I need to do is return a string from the price. Now keep in mind that formatter may not be able to format that double, so this returns an optional string. In case we're not able to format the price, we'll just be returning 0. Now all of my products will be inside of an order. The order is what we're going to be showing in the list. So let's create another entity, order. This order will also be a struct. The only thing an order has is a list of products. Now let's create two computed variables for this. One will be the total, which will be just summing up the price of the products in the order. For this, I could be using a for each, but I like keeping it just in one-liners. So I'll be using the reduce function. Use this one with the initial result, so from 0, and then I'll have a closure that just adds up the value each time. So to the result, add the price of the product. Pretty straightforward. And as I did in product, I don't want to show a double, I want to show a formatted double, so I'm going to format the total. The string. And we'll name it product service. So this will fetch the products that we have available on store so that the user can choose from it. Let's create a protocol, product service. And for now, the only thing that I want to do is get the available products that we have. So products. And this will return an array of products. Create the class that's going to conform to it. Service adapter. And this conform. Now what am I going to be returning? I have already a snippet for this. So as you can see here, this is going to be the test description that we're going to have for each product. And what I'm doing here is just creating our product that we're going to be having in our store. So here's the description for each and the name of the images that I just moved to the assets catalog. So we're going to return here products. Give some space here. Let's select this view controller and create them. So we will have two view controllers for this exercise. The first is the view controller where we're going to have the list of the products that we have in our order, and in case the user taps on one of these cells, we'll go to the detail of that product. So let's drag this one. Okay, so Here, this is just going to be a list, so the only thing that I'm going to use for now is a table view. Oh. I'm going to constrain it, so it's going to take up the entire view. And I want to have an add button, so as you see in the upper right corner, I just want to have a plus icon to add products to my list. So I'm going to embed this view in a navigation controller, so that I have my navigation bar, and I'm gonna add a bar button item. Now in order to have the plus icon, you just have to come here in the system item, drop down and select add, and there I have my plus. Let's just hook up this to our first scene. So I like grouping all of my scenes on a folder. And inside that, let's create another group. So this will be my order. Now, for sake of this exercise, I'm going to be using MVVM, which is faster to implement. So let's create first our order view controller. It will be a UI view controller order. And we'll also create our order view model. Now our order view model is going to be the one that actually has the data, so it's going to have the order. As I told you, each time we start our app, it's going to start with a blank order with an empty list of products. So every time our list will be empty, and it will be up to us to add products. Let's do just that. Product service. Remember always to reference your service with the protocol, not the implementation. Let's store our products here. So our array of products, we will fetch them the first time that they're asked here. So returning the service. Yep. So the products that we get from our service. And I will not create the view where the user actually chooses which product is going to add. So each time the user taps on the plus icon, we will be adding a random product to the list. Now let's create that method. So product. And we'll just append to our order. Orders append, and we will be appending a random element. So let's use a guard. And that's it. That's everything we need for now. Hook it up here. So we'll add our order view controller. And let's just add the outlet for the table view and the action for when the user taps in the plus icon. Let's add some space here, and by control dragging, I'll create my order table view. And again, by control dragging, this method will be called each time the user taps on the plus icon. Let's delete all of this. And remember, always make your outlets private. In order to effectively use our table view, we need to hook it up to a UITableViewDelegate and UITableViewDataSource. In this case, our order view controller is going to be those two, fulfilling those two roles. So I'll first create a private extension for our private method. And I'll also conform to UITableViewDelegate. for now we'll just be using this protocol for the height of the rows, and also conform to TableView Now this one is responsible for telling the UI TableView the number of sections. In this case, we'll just have one section. We will gather all of the products that the user adds to the order. We'll also have the number of rows. Now, keep in mind that the view model is the one that has the order. So that's why I created a variable, the view model, and we're going to be asking him for everything regarding the order. So we won't have a direct reference to the product, we'll just be asking the view model. So view model, and let's assume it has good number of products. So let's do just that. In our view model, we'll create this function, it will return an int. And the only thing we need to do is count the products in our order. That's pretty much it. Now we're missing another method, which is self-override_index_path. This is where we return our custom UITableViewCell that we will be using. For now, let's just return a normal UITableViewCell so that we are able to build, but don't worry, we're going to be creating our UITableViewCell next. Let's create our TableViewCell. So I like creating my UITableViewCell on a separate zip. I don't want to drag the cell into Storyboards since we can be reusing that for other scenes. Let's create this product TableViewCell. Yes, I want to create a zip also. Let's add it here. Let's go to our zip. So our cell is going to have a very simple design. We're only going to have an image, which will be showing on the left. Let's add our image here. We won't leave any space here, and it will have an aspect ratio of 1:1. Now I will add the name here and the price here. The description, we won't show it for the cell. So let's have a label for the name. Set it here. And let's add another label for the price. Let's constrain it. We'll have the standard distance here, and if the name is too long, then let's just stretch it here. And we'll constrain our price here. Now will be basically the same. Can go as far as it wants, but in this case our price will be aligned to the right. And that's pretty much our cell. It will be a very simple one. Now I will be tapping on the cell to take me to the detail, so I will be adding a disclosure indicator, which is just this caret sign, so that the user knows that when it taps on the cell, it takes him to another view. Add these outlets to our cell. We have a product image view, the name label, and we have the price label. Now remember, if possible, always make your outlets private. And the only thing I want to do here in my away from nib is I don't want my cells to be highlighted when they are selected, so our selection style will be none. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a view model that someone is going to pass, and then the cell is the responsible to assign in the values for each of the outlets. So we're going to be creating the product view model, and we'll just have a name, price, which will also be a string, and it will have an image name. We'll just create one method that will configure the table view cell with that view model. So we'll configure it with the view model, part of view model. So we'll assign our image using the image name, UI image, using the named initializer, and we'll be using the image name from the view model. Our name label, use the text, the price label, price. And that's pretty much it for our cells. Now, so each time the cell is reused, we'll just remove any assigned values that it had from before, and the user will need to configure it again. For view controller, now I need to associate this cell with the table view that I just created. And we also need to tell the table view that our view controller is going to be the UITableViewDelegate and UITableViewDataSource. So let's do that in a method to not clutter our viewDidLoad. So we'll create a configure table view. For this, so here we will just tell the table view that we are its delegate. We are also its data source. And we will register the cell that we just created. Let's create an identifier for this. Part of table view cell identifier. And we'll just do part of cell identifier. Now we'll have a reference for this. So we'll use the register with the UINib. Now, since this is the main bundle, I'll use new, and the name is going to be the set that we just created. Now keep in mind this has the same name of the class, so we can use this neat trick to avoid typos. Describing, and we'll just use the class product table.self. And let's use our identifier. Let's break the line here to have this organized. And after registering all of our stuff, let's just reload the data. What this does is it just tells the table view to invalidate its data, and it will call again all of the methods in its delegate and data source to redraw the table view. Now keep in mind that right now we're not returning the table view cell that we registered, so let's do that. What we want to do first is dequeue a reusable cell. Guardlet cell, table view.dequeue reusable cell with identifier. We have it there, product table view cell identifier as, and it will be the product cell we just created. And if we cannot do that, then we will just return a UITableView cell. Now that we have our cell, we can return it, but keep in mind that we are missing configuring it. So we're missing this. From where we're going to get our product view model? Again, from the order view model. The view controller doesn't need to worry about it. It's just going to ask for it. So what do we want to do here is get product view model for an index path. And this will return a product view model. So let's return the order that products. And here we're using index.row. Now we need to transform this into a view model, so let's not do it in one line. And let's create a product view model so it has a name. And the product here we're going to use the formatted price that we created, and it has an image name. Now this is the method that we're going to be using here. View model, get product view model for, and we have an index path. Now let's try and run this and see what we have for now. This is the initial view controller. Also, let's add a product so that we can update our table view. So the only thing that we're going to be doing here is telling the view model to add a product. The view model is the one responsible for updating the source of truth, which is going to be the order, and the only thing the view controller needs to concern itself with is updating the table view. So we're going to reload data, since we don't know where it is actually going to get updated. Now let's try running this. And as you can see, we have our table view here. We can scroll through, well, actually I don't have any products, so let's try adding them by tapping here. So you can see when I tap, I get a coffee table. Let's tap some more. We're going to be doing this. Now let's tap on the table. As you can see, tapping on the cell does nothing because we haven't actually used that method in the delegate to know what to do when a user taps on a cell. So let's start first by adding a title. So as you can see, we have several products, but we don't know the total. So let's use the title in the navigation bar to keep track of that total. Stop the implementation. And I'm going to be adding another private method, which is going to be update title. And here, the only thing that I'm going to do is get the total from my view model. Let's assume it has a method get total. And I'm going to be assigning that total to the title. Let's create this method. I'm just going to return a string, and as you might remember, in our order we have already a very convenient variable to get the formatted total. So we're going to call the title here when we configure, after configuring the table view, and we're also going to update the title each time we add a new product. Now, as you can see, we have 0, 0 here, and as we add products, you can see that the total is getting updated. Now, let's try, we have already implemented adding products, let's try deleting products. So, for those of you that are familiar with iOS, the normal behavior for deleting is actually editing the table and tapping on a red icon here, or by dragging from right to left, and you will see that a red button appears here. Now, we don't have that because our table view doesn't have the necessary methods implemented to allow this behavior. To do this, the only thing that we actually need to do is our data source needs to commit to an editing style, which will be delete. Now for this, we'll just need to check that our editing style is equal to delete. Else we're going to do nothing. Now, if it is a delete, we're actually just going to delete that method, delete that cell, sorry. And again, we're going to tell our view model to update the source of truth. Let's do that, view model dot, and let's assume there's going to be a method, delete product add. Let's add this in our declaration, and it's going to be at an index path. Now, after updating the source of truth, what do we need to do? We just need to actually delete the cell in the table. Now, this is very important. You should always first update the source of truth and then update the visual part. So the table view, the rows get deleted after updating the data. Let's delete the rows in the same index path with an automatic animation. And because we just deleted a product, we're going to update again the title. Now let's go to our view model. Let's create this new method. Delete product add. Use an index path as an internal name. And the only thing we're going to do here is product, remove add, index path dot row. Let's build and run to see what we have. Now, as you can see, we have the same behavior, but now when I swipe, you will see that we have a delete button. As soon as I tap it, it gets updated. Oh, our total gets updated. Let's add one more. Let's try deleting everyone. And voila. Now we're missing one more behavior that we could easily do here, and it is moving rows. So let's add a new button for this. In order to move rows, we need to actually activate the editing style in our table view. There's no gesture for moving cells. So let's add another bar button item, and this is going to be an edit button. There's also a style for this. So let's add it here. And the style is going to be, the system item is going to be edit. Let's hook up the ID action. So toggle edit. Let's go to our order view controller, and the only thing that we're going to do here is toggling on and off the editing style. So editing, we're going to do it animated, and it's just going to turn it on or off. So order table view is editing. We'll do the settings of this. That's it. Let's build and run again. Let's add some products, and let's click on editing. Now you will see that there's now another way to delete here, which is with this red button. And you will see that we won't have the 3 lines that normally appear at the right, where we can actually drag cells. Now this is because we haven't conformed to one method in our data source, which will enable us to move rows. I'm going to tap here on edit to toggle it off. Like this. And the method that we have to implement is can move. So we'll return true. You can move. And we'll need a method just like this one to commit editing in order to update our source of truth. Move row up. Again, the first thing that we need to do is update our source of truth. So view model move product. I'm going to move it from the source index path to the destination index path. We don't need to update the total since this is just moving products. And I actually think, yeah, we don't need to do anything else. So let's first create this method. From the source index path to the destination index path. Now the only thing we need to do is remove the product from the source. So order the product remove from the source index path. Now this method remove returns the product that was removed, and let's just insert the product at the destination. Move the product at the destination index. Destination index path. Now let's try once more. Now let's add more products. You can still delete. Now you'll notice that once I trigger the editing mode, I will have these 3 lines. If I grab all of these, I can move my wooden chair. And there's no issue. And that's it for our list. Now let's work hooking this up so that when I tap on a cell, I'm taken to the detail of that product. What we are missing is the scene that represents the product detail. So let's do that. Name that scene product detail. And we'll start by creating the view model. It's going to be a very simple one. Now this view model will only have one product, and it's going to be optional. And then some variables that I'm going to use from the view. It's going to have a name. Oh, product detail. In case I don't have a product, I'm going to turn no product string. I'm also going to have an image name. In this case, if there's no product, I'm just going to return an empty string. Lastly, I'm going to have a description. I'm also going to return an empty string here. I'm also going to create a function to configure this view model with that product. Now, I could have encapsulated this dependency, the product, in another struct so that the view doesn't need to handle directly the model, but for this small project, I'm not going to do that. We're going to do it for a later lesson. Now let's create our view controller and then hook it up to our storyboard. Let's say UITableViewController. And we're going to have 2 outlets here. So one would be the product image view. It's going to be a private var. And then we're going to have a text view where we're going to put the description of the product. There's going to be a text view. We will also have a function to configure this scene with a product. Again, we could be using a struct to encapsulate all of this, but we're not going to do it here. Oh, we'll also have a view model. And the only thing we'll do here is just configure the view model with that product. Now we are going to use the viewDidLoad. And the only thing we're going to do is the product image view. Its image is with the image name of the product. We get that from the view model. And we also have the text view. We also get that description from the view model. And then we also set the title with the name of the product. Hook up these outlets and relate it to our storyboard. So we have it here. The only thing we need to do here is add views. So let's drag a UI image view. I'm not gonna worry too much here about the image, so I'm just gonna attach it to this. and add a constraint for the height with the super view. So it's just gonna be, let's say, 1/3 of the height of the super view. So it doesn't matter the orientation, we just occupy 1/3 of that. Doesn't matter. And then the rest of the space would be occupied by our text view. Also, we need to specify that this is going to be our product detail view controller. And then we just control drag our outlets. Let's also add a storyboard identifier so we can instantiate this view controller several times. Product detail. Let's add this storyboard ID. Go to our view controller, the order view controller. Let's add our new view controller identifier, so product detail VC identifier. And as we said, when we select a cell in our table view, we want to go toward that. We use the identifier to instantiate the view controller from the storyboard, so we can use that with the storyboard property. Every view controller has this, and it's a reference to the storyboard that the view controller belongs to. And from that storyboard, we're going to instantiate the view controller. Let's say product detail VC. So we're going to ask our storyboard to instantiate the view controller with the identifier. So product detail VC identifier as product detail view controller. If not, then we're just going to return. Now, remember the method that we created to configure this scene with a product. We're missing fetching that product. So let's add this method to our view model. So instead of transforming the product into a view model, we're just gonna fetch the product from the order. Now we just have to configure the view controller with the product, so view model get product for index path, and then we show the view controller. The show method, every view controller has it. What it does is it uses the UI navigation view controller that it belongs to and just pushes this new view controller to the navigation stack. That's exactly what we're going to do. Push the product detail view controller. The sender is going to be this view controller. Now let's run and see how it looks. Let's add some products. Let's tap on the bench. You can see that we are taken to the bench. We can go back, tap on the yellow chair, and everything's ready. Now you'll remember that we had a bonus challenge in which we're going to run this, make this app also adapt to the iPad. Let's try running it right now and see what happens. So as you see, we have our table view. We can add products also in the iPad and go here. Now, although this is working, this is not exactly the behavior that we decided to have on an iPad with so much real estate on the screen. In order to take advantage of the iPad's huge screen, we're going to use a UISplitViewController where we can present in the same screen two view controllers at the same time. For this, let's first go to our storyboard and let's drag in a UISplitViewController. Now the way this works is you have a view controller and you're gonna link two things, the master view controller and the detail view controller. So space. Now let's make this split view controller the initial view controller. And we will drag the navigation view controller with the table view as the master view controller. And our product detail will be the detail view controller. Try running with this setup. Now, as you can see, we have our table on the left, not occupying the entire screen. And on the right, it's where it's supposed to be the product detail. However, let's see what happens when I add some products. And now when I click here, you will see that we are showing the detail also on the left. Now, this is because we're still using show. We need to change that. So let's go to our order view controller. And instead of using show, we're going to use another method, which is called show detail view controller. What this does is use the split view controller to present on the detail side the master. Let's add this product detail. Again, the center is going to put this one. And that's pretty much all that we have to do. And there you go. Every time I tap here, and I'm going to be showing it here, I'm going to be updating my view on the left. Now you will see that we don't have here a navigation bar title. This is because now we're not using the navigation bar we got from our table view. Now we will have to also add a navigation bar here. We can do that easily. So let's go back to our storyboard. We will embed this view controller also in a navigation controller. And we will add also a storyboard ID for this one, because now we're going to instantiate all of this from our navigation view controller. So detail, navigation. Now let's go to our order view controller and update what we are instantiating for our detail. So first of all, it's not going to be product detail VC, but my navigation VC. So let's first instantiate this one as a UI navigation controller. So this is going to be my navigation controller. And then we're going to get our product detail view controller from the navigation controller. We're going to get it from the view controllers. We're going to ask for the first one as product detail view control. Now let's add the navigation controller, because that's what we're going to be putting. The navigation controller has inside the product detail. Now you will see, now that we're saying navigation bar, you can see that we needed to add an optional product to our detail view, because with a split view controller, both of these view controllers will be instantiated at the same time. So I don't have a time to create products to then pass it on to this one. So you can see we have no product. And when we add some and tap on this, we get this view updated. Now, look what happens when I turn on this to portrait mode. UITableViewController has a cool behavior where the master view controller is hidden by default, and when you swipe from the left, it slides in. You can tap here and update, and then when you tap on your detail, the master hides. Now, although we have this ready for iPad, there's one side effect of using UISplitView in iPhone. You will see now that we are beginning the scene in the detail view controller scene. We'll go back. You'll see that we have here our table. We can add here, we can go here. Now, if you don't want this behavior, we can subclass the split view controller and change this so that this will be our initial scene, the table. Well, let's do that. Let's create a scene. It will be our split view. And here we'll just create our own split view controller, UI split view controller. Now here the only thing we need to do is add ourselves as delegate. So conform to this delegating an extension. And the only method that we need to override is the one that collapses the secondary view, this one, and we return true. Now that we have our custom split view controller, let's go to our storyboard and add this to our split view controller here. It will be my split view controller. Let's try running this. Now you can see when we start an iPhone, we will have our table first, and then we can go here. As an additional benefit, because we are running on Xcode 11 and we have macOS Catalina, we can also enable that our new iPad app is enabled for Mac. So let's add this checkbox. Note that to run on the Mac, you will also need a development team, which I have already added in the sign-in capabilities. And I'm going to run on Mac. And we will see here, we will get the same thing we had in the iPad with the split view controller. We have the two scenes at the same time. We can add products. We can also drag. This is the default gesture. When you hold mouse button, you can move. We can toggle the edit mode. We can delete the cells. Toggle the edit mode off. And as we tap here, you can see that we can go to our detail view. And as any application in Mac, we can resize the views and our views adapt thanks to auto layout. And that's pretty much, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments, and see you next time to do this exact same project, but with Swift UI.